Hi everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to the next episode of Sydney Social Live, a one-of-its-kind, thought-provoking talk show that puts the spotlight on the hidden realities of Sydney's social circles. Why do I say hidden realities? It's because these are issues and topics that a lot of people are struggling with, but unfortunately not enough people are talking about them, except of course us here at Sydney Social Live. Now, what is the purpose of this show? The purpose of the show is to spark important conversations, to foster positivity, and to cultivate a community and society that is accepting and non-judgmental. You all know that each week I have a special guest, and today I have the one and only Karen Sander. Drum roll! Thank you, Karen, for coming on Sydney Social Live. Are you as excited as I am?
I'm incredibly excited, Nim, because you always spark great conversations.
And so do you. So today I'm sure is going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot of food for thought for our audience, don't we?
We absolutely do. We've been doing a bit of brainstorming, and I love to brainstorm on topics that need to be spoken about.
Very important. Now, I want to read out a little bit about you to our lovely audience so that those who don't know you get to know you a little bit better. So bear with me while I do that, and then we'll dive into our chat. So everybody, before I begin, wishing you all a very, very, very happy Diwali. Hopefully you are all enjoying the sweets, the mithai, the friendships, the dancing, the music. And have fun. We will talk more about that a bit later. Let's get started. So Karen Sander, for those of you who don't know Karen, I know Karen very well and she's one of my favorite people. So Karen is the author of Aging Fearlessly. Don't be defined by a number. A great book. I have read it, highly recommended. Now, shortly after the publication of her book, she created a radio program and then a podcast of the same name. With 122 episodes, her target audience is mainly women over the age of 50 who feel fearful about the aging process. In more recent years, Karen founded the Story Room, a live storytelling event held monthly in Sydney. Over 3 years, the event has grown in popularity and has helped rebuild the community after COVID, giving the audience and the storytellers to connect through the power of true stories. Karen has learned that sharing stories is changing lives. So true, Karen. And this is now the title for her soon-to-be launched podcast.
Oh, it's very exciting.
Exciting times. Karen has also embarked on a remarkable journey following the publication of her book. She's ventured into the realm of audio content by establishing a radio program and subsequently crafting a podcast under the same name title. Is there anything you can't do, Karen?
There's lots of things I can't do, Nim. It just sounds good, though, doesn't it?
I don't believe for a moment there are things you can't do. So that is fabulous. I know that I've been listening to you and your storytellers for a long time. You're doing some amazing work. Before we get started, and I'm throwing you in the deep end here because we haven't planned this or brainstormed this, do you want to tell us a little bit behind the motivation for the Story Room?
Yes, so Nim, thank you for that amazing introduction. And the Story Room, I was invited to tell a story at an event in Sydney, and I really, really enjoyed the event, and I liked sharing my story. And I started to go every month to this event. And I was sitting there one month with a girlfriend, and I turned to her and I went, "We could do this."
Yeah.
And she said to me, "No, Karen, you could do this, and I'm more than willing to help you get it off the ground." So along with a few other friends, they stood by me, they helped brainstorm, they helped me get it off the ground. They actually held me accountable, which is really important.
Very important, because when you're not held accountable often, you don't end up achieving the things you set out for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's always good to have a village around you to help you be accountable.
Yeah, well done. Good
Thank
work.
you.
And see how far you've come already.
Yeah, 3 years later.
3 years later. Well done. Good work. So, as you know, Karen, this show is really about social life, social etiquette, social circles. It's something I've been writing about for a long time.
Yep.
and I choose my guests based on their ability to be articulate and the value they bring. So I'm super excited about today.
Well, I'm honoured that you asked me. I'll try to be articulate.
Shall we start?
Yeah, we should start.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about social etiquette. And I know that when we talk about social behaviors, I know there are a few things that bug you a little bit, that annoy you a little bit about, related to social etiquette. Let's put the spotlight on some of them. One of the things we talked about is RSVP. Yes, I know. I feel like rolling my eyes as well. But do you want to tell our audience a little bit about what irks you when it comes to this topic of RSVP?
Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify, it's not the RSVP, the dating program.
I didn't even think about that.
It's the RSVP into invitations. And Nim, when you're holding an event, it's really important that you've invited people, and for means of catering and the size of the venue,
yes,
everything involved, what you need to bring to that event, it's important for people to RSVP. If they don't say yes, then you just presume they're not coming. But it's also etiquette to say no.
Yes.
They don't have to tell you why they can't make it. That's their personal choice, or they've got something else on. But it is important from hosting an event, as the event host, that you know what numbers you're going to have.
Very true. I also find that a lot of people think that silence is a form of RSVP. That if I don't say anything, surely she'd understand I'm not coming. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, well, example, I've hosted many events in my previous working career, and one particular example was we sent out to our clients invitations for a Christmas function, and it was an amazing event in a beautiful location on the waterfront, and we catered for a certain number of people. But there was a woman who turned up that night, and she brought a friend along. She hadn't RSVP'd, nor had she said she wasn't coming. And then on top of that, we had to find them seats, and then she had dietary issues that she wanted us to cater for. Oh, I just find that incredibly, it's incredibly rude.
Yeah, and thoughtless.
It's really I like that better than rude. It's thoughtless, because she's only thinking about herself and not about the effort that we've gone and trying to get the numbers together for a venue that holds 150. It's not easy to fit 2 more in when you've decided how you're setting up the tables. Imagine if it was a wedding. The same sort of thing. And that does really, it's one of the things I just don't like in society these days, that people feel that they don't have to, they can just turn up.
And also, I know we talked about people who turn up last minute without having RSVP. There's a cut-off date often. And then people rock up last minute. And that, as an event organizer, that must be quite troublesome as well for you, right?
Oh, yeah, it is really troublesome because, again, it's the same thing. You just don't know how to deal with it. If someone turns up and you can't give them a seat, you can't provide the right meal, or there's other people that have bought tickets or turned up on time, and it puts them out with seating, etc. And it just throws, the word I like, a spanner in the works.
Absolutely. I think there's a general perception with some people that organizing events is such an easy task, and it is so not. It is filled with so many sleepless nights and heartache.
Oh yeah, especially when you haven't got the numbers, or you think you haven't got the numbers, because you've hired a venue quite often and you're trying to do the right thing by the venue owners to bring business to them, and sometimes there's parts of that they rely on when you're bringing people into their venue. So it's just courtesy.
Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about those who sort of, sometimes you give free tickets to people, right? And I know you've done that occasionally in the past. Tell me about that, the RSVP aspect of that.
Did you just see me raise my eyebrows? Look, I've learned the hard way that if you're giving a free ticket, you can't expect that people are going to turn up. If the ticket price is $35, you're effectively giving them a $35 ticket for free. And quite often they don't value that. And that's the one thing about giving tickets away. They don't find value in it. And I think that's the same way when you run an event and you don't charge a fee. they don't see the value in it, and it's really easy not to turn up.
Yes.
But like I often reach out and say to people that haven't turned up when I've given them a free ticket, why didn't you turn up? And the answer's really, I'm sad to say, they're not really
good enough reasons.
No.
But let me clarify here, these are not just people you've given free tickets to, these are people who said they'd love to come, they'd love to get a free ticket from you, and still don't let you know at the last minute that, you know what, I'm actually not turning up. Now that is difficult for an event organizer.
Yeah, and I've often at lunchtime that day when there's a 7 o'clock event that night saying, look, it's really important if you have a free ticket to show up. Is there any reason now you're not going to be there tonight? Because I will give that ticket to someone else.
Absolutely.
And they still say, no, I'm coming.
And still don't turn up.
Don't turn up.
Let me put a question to our lovely audience. A lot of people watching are event organizers. Tell us, do you feel our pain? Have you had any experiences where you might have given a complimentary ticket, or you've been waiting for someone to RSVP and they just don't, assuming that being silent is a form of RSVP? Do share your thoughts and comments. Like I always say, don't forget to tell us hi, tell us which part of the world you're logging in from. A lot of my audience is also tuning in from India, which is currently 5.5 hours behind, so it's about 11:30, 12 there. So let us know which city and where you're logging in from. And if you have any questions for Karen, please pop them in the comments and we'll do our best to answer during the live session. All right, so that's some great insight on RSVP. Talking over other people is another one of your pet peeves, I know that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I did it to you when we first started today.
Did you? I didn't notice.
Jumped in first before you'd really properly introduced me. Look, I think you have to, I'm going to start that again.
Yeah.
I think we are often eager to jump into a conversation and butt in because we've got something to say. But try to remember to hold that thought and listen to the conversation and where it's going. And when there's an opportunity that the person you're speaking with, you know, ends what they're actually speaking about, it's really, that's your opportunity, and it's to say, look, Nim, just a minute ago you said something and it triggered something in my mind and I wanted to mention this.
Yeah.
And that's what I do in my podcast. That's what I've actually learnt from podcasting. The skill of listening, knowing when it's your turn to jump in, and trying to remember the little thread that made you go off and want to jump in, because we're all very quick to jump in.
Yeah. And like you rightly said, the motives are very noble. It's because we feel we've got a similar story to share, and it's perfectly understandable. You said something very interesting about listening, and I find that active listening is a dying skill. You know, there's not very many good listeners, would you say?
Yes, I agree entirely. And I have to say that the majority of my life, I wasn't a good listener. And whether I had some sort of auditory thing going on, it wasn't a lack of hearing, but that lack of taking it in properly. And again, what I've learnt from podcasting and from the story room events is actually how to listen, and listen actively, and listen for the, you know, with purpose.
Yes.
What is this person going to tell me? It might be really important for my life. I might learn something here, and I think that's a skill that we need to bring back.
Absolutely. And again, you hit the nail on the head by saying there's something we have to learn. The minute we approach a conversation believing that there's something we have to learn, I think we will be able to cultivate the art of listening well. You know, it's when we think I know more, or I have something even better to tell, something more exciting, that's when we tend to speak over it. But if we just go in and approach every conversation as, I'm going to learn something new.
Absolutely. And the skill I've learned through podcasting is I always have a pen and paper, and you say something about, you know, and I'll scribble. And I've warned my guests earlier, if you see me scribbling, just ignore it, because you will have said something that I'm going to come back to.
Yeah.
And then I can go, hey Nim, you mentioned about active listening. Can you tell me more about that? And it's just, all it is a prompt.
Yeah.
That's a technique you can use, you know, in an interview situation. It's not a technique you can use in a general conversation. You have to you have to just sort, you know, try to remember what
The
the
other
thread was. But
But
that's what I do.
let's say you are talking to someone and Karen is jotting down something. Take that as a compliment because it does mean you said something interesting enough for Karen to write down. So do not be offended, is what I'm trying to say. That's great. That brings me to another social etiquette, social behavior topic, which is about punctuality.
Ooh.
Or the lack thereof. Depends on which angle you want to pick up. What would you like to say about that?
I'm rarely late. I'm a punctual being.
Yeah.
And you say 5 o'clock, I'll be there at 2 minutes to 5 at the latest. I think punctuality is, again, it's a given.
Yes.
You have to be on time.
Yeah.
Turning up for a meeting late, unless you've broken your leg on the way and landed in hospital, there's not a lot of good reasons for turning up late. Or without phoning in with that good reason, look, I really can't make it on time, but I will be there, But, like, try not to be late. It's just courteous.
Absolutely. It's respecting the other
It's
person's
respect.
time.
Yeah, it's time, because time is something you can never get back. And if you're to meet someone and you're 15 minutes late and you've got a half an hour catch up, well, you've only got a 15-minute catch up, and that person's sat there losing 15 minutes they can never get back. I know it sounds trivial, but there's some people that are always late.
Yes.
And what do you do then? You tell them half an hour later, and you just hope that they're still going to get there on time. I mean, it's not a skill you want to develop, being late.
Look, every now and then, that you might have missed a train, or there might be a real reason. But there are people who are, chronically late every single time, and I really think they need to look inwards and figure out a better way to really do things.
Yeah, set an alarm. Like, if I know I'm coming to meet you at 1:45 today, at midday, I set an alarm that says Nim.
Yeah.
And I go, I have to have a shower now, and I have to wash my hair, and I have to be out the door at 1:45 because it's nearly an hour's drive. And you plan it, work backwards from the time. When are you planning to get there? And it's not that hard.
No. And also, I think if you're going to an unknown place, it's good to really look at Google Maps and see how much time is it going to take me to get there. If it's going to take you 45 minutes, you plan accordingly.
And if you don't know what the traffic's like, find a good coffee shop and get there early and go and have one.
I agree. High five on that one. We are kindred spirits. We agree on that. That's for sure. All right. That brings me to another thing, customer service, right? Communication skills. I remember a time when, it was customer is king, customer service was something that a lot of people took very, very seriously. Doesn't happen so much nowadays, and every time I come across an example of good customer service, I'm always quite pleasantly surprised. I know, again, from our offline chit-chat that you've got some interesting insights about this sort of umbrella topic. So what would you like to share with our audience?
I wrote a chapter in my book, Aging Fearlessly, about catching more flies with honey.
I like that.
And it was really aimed at my experiences at work at the time in the pharmaceutical industry. I used to sometimes get phone calls. Now, I wasn't customer service, but I was their point of reference. And at times, the rudeness that you would get over the phone, just someone screaming and yelling at you, it actually makes you turn off the switch, and there's no empathy then. It's like, get out of my hair. But really, if you can treat the person on the other end of the line with respect, they are there to help you solve a problem.
Yes.
And if you treat them with respect and keep the emotion out of the issue that you're explaining, you're more likely to get it solved. And so many customer service or places these days say, be mindful when you're speaking to this person. If you're rude, we won't continue the conversation. Not in so many words. They know that their staff often get abused. But the staff are only carrying out the requests of management.
True.
They can't always change the solution, but they can listen. They can try to find you a solution, and a lot of times they will find you a solution. And you're much more likely to come out with a positive result than a negative result, and
Absolutely.
to be heard, because they will listen to you.
Yeah.
Quite often, if I've sat online for half an hour waiting for a call at the bank or whatever, the first thing I'll say to them is, boy, you must be really busy this afternoon. It's been quite a wait. And they'll go, oh, yeah, it's been really busy. And I say, are you okay?
Yeah.
And they go, yeah. And then thanks for asking.
That's right.
And okay, I'm probably annoyed, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to let them know that I'm annoyed.
True.
I'm going to manage to get the thing that I want done somehow.
That's actually an example of emotional intelligence. So well done. It's quite the buzzword nowadays. You've got to demonstrate emotional intelligence. There you go, my friends. That's an absolutely amazing example of emotional intelligence being demonstrated. And I like that quote you said. What is it? Catch more flies with honey.
With honey, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
when you try to understand the other person's point of view, you just end up having some amazing conversations.
Yeah, you do.
And
Because
building
look,
relationships.
they're another person. They're there to try and help you. That's what customer service is all about.
Absolutely.
The minute you fire up, the minute they turn off.
True. So you have some other things, right, related to social etiquette that you wanted to put the spotlight on. Were there a few other things you had in mind when we were chatting? I remember you telling me.
Well, things like when someone opens the door for you, or you both open the door at the same time and the person on the other side steps aside and lets you through.
Yeah.
It's nice to acknowledge that person and say thank you. And I find the same when I'm driving the car. You know, when you're driving the car down the street and there's not enough room for two, and you pull over
Yes.
and you let the other person pass. It's always been a thing in Australia that the person that you've let pass usually does a little wave or
Yes.
acknowledgement. I find that happens less and less now these days. But,
Completely dying skill.
yeah, but it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
To wait, and it just says that, okay, thank you, you waited and let me go first.
Yeah. Or
It's-
even when you've got to let someone into your lane, and that's the same, right? Again, people don't acknowledge it anymore in their rearview mirror. Back in the day, I'd say thank you.
And
Yeah.
and you're not going to get to where you're going any faster. That's what always amuses me.
That's
people,
true.
And the people that push in front of you, and really,
It's almost like there's a point that has to be, they have to prove it, but
Yeah.
and ultimately it's the red light, and we've all got to stop there. So
Yeah.
that's the funny part.
And
what else?
Well, public transport. The last 2 years, I've been catching public transport much more.
Yeah.
The reason being, it saves on parking fees and crossing the harbour bridge fees and all those tolls that we get. It's much easier to jump on a bus or a train or a ferry. And when you're on a crowded bus, I often notice that people are very reluctant to stand up for someone that's in need of a seat, a pregnant woman or a woman with a child or a person with a disability. But when we were at school, we were taught as school children that we should stand and let our elders sit. And I don't think it hurts if we are quite capable of standing and someone looks like they really need a seat, then offer them a seat.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's good for you to stand up. It is actually good for you to stand up. I get a little bit funny now when someone young offers me a seat, and I think,
When did that happen?
Yeah, like what happened there? But I'm quite capable of standing. But
Yeah.
it's nice that someone
Offers.
and I think that that's a skill that doesn't happen anymore. And also in public transport, people talking very loudly on the phone.
Yes, that's my pet peeve as well.
I have to consciously try not to because I have a very loud voice, if you haven't noticed. But it is something that you have to be mindful of, that the whole of the ferry or the bus doesn't want to know what
Your
you're
life
having
story.
for dinner when you get home.
That is so true. I think we've covered a lot of interesting points about social etiquette. Have we left anything untouched or anything we haven't covered?
What about table manners?
Oh, tell me about that. That's a good topic.
Going to a restaurant, I was always taught that until the last person at the table received their meal, you didn't start eating. And yes, that's true, unless everyone at the table has agreed that you can start eating. They've given you permission. I think they're things that we lose sight of, and yeah, it's just a little thing.
Yeah.
But it's polite to
Wait.
wait. Unless, look, sometimes a restaurant might get something wrong with the menu and of their orders, and someone's meal doesn't get there till much later, then of course you
Yes.
should eat. But that's the restaurant's problem,
Absolutely.
not your problem.
And it doesn't happen all the time.
No, it doesn't happen
so
that much.
very good points to keep in mind. So that was awesome. Thank you for sharing those insights on. I'm sure all of us have taken away a lot of value from these points. That brings me to another topic I wanted to touch upon today, and that is about friendships. Also with friendships, the fact that nowadays a lot of friendships tend to end a whole lot more easily than back in the good old days. So tell us a little bit about your insights on this.
Well, I have had some friendships that I've walked away from, and other people have walked away with friendships with me because we just don't have anything in common anymore. Sometimes the friendships are so broken, they're never going to be repaired. Sometimes they're friendships that may have broken on social media and someone may have blocked you or vice versa. And look, it's not easy to repair those.
Yeah,
But
true.
I think one thing, you know, you just have to think, is that person of real value in your life? Do you really care deeply for them? And do you want them as friends? Sometimes friendships become toxic and they aren't. You've grown apart, completely grown apart, and they're not working for you. But you have to consider what that friendship meant to you, and then if there is a way to rebuild it, then offer the olive branch.
Yep, I love that.
And go and try and work it out. In a couple of cases, the olive branch has been offered and it's not worked out, but you know, then you can go, okay, well, it wasn't meant to be. We had a good friendship for a long time, but we're now going our own ways, and that's okay too.
Talking about the olive branch, I find that very often people, maybe the ego sort of comes in between, and a lot of people might be reluctant to offer the olive branch because they think it's no fault of mine, I'm not going to do it, etc. And I think that might also be a roadblock, right? You've got to be prepared to clarify, and if, like you said, if it doesn't work out despite your efforts, then maybe it's time to move on.
And I think some friendships, you know, I recently had a situation with an email that was a very blaming sort of, you know, email. It was really quite upsetting, and I wrote back to the person that, look, I'd really like to talk about this in person. The story that you're sharing here isn't completely true, but I'm not going to write in an email. Give me a call and we'll go for coffee and we will talk about it. That's the best way to resolve this.
Yes. Some things you
Ghosting.
can't put an email, right?
No, you can't. And emails aren't a way to repair a situation.
Yeah.
That's why, like, face-to-face or it's just so much better because you can read the person. If you can't see the person, it's very, very difficult to read them. And there's so much in the body language, in the eye contact, that are important to trying to repair a friendship. And then it also comes down to the listening skills again.
Absolutely.
You know, because we both have a point of view, and both our points of view are more than likely valid, because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
But let's see the other person's point of view and see how we can resolve it.
Also in emails, you know, if you're not mindful of your tone, and a lot of people find it very difficult to master that. And the tone of an email could be incredibly rude, even when that is not the intention, which again leads to further misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And again, it increases the distance between the two parties. So I fully agree with Karen that if you've got a potential fallout with a friend, don't sort of send to and fro WhatsApp messages or emails. Get on a call, have a coffee, you know, meet in person.
Yeah, and before you unfriend them, because once you've unfriended them, it's very hard to come back from that. Don't unfriend them.
Yeah.
But you know, you don't have to necessarily talk to them on Facebook. You can, and eventually their messages will head to the back anyway. You won't see so much. I don't know how the algorithms work, but the longer you aren't in touch or looking at each other's email, posts, then the less you see them. But look,
talking about unfriending, I just want to clarify that if it's a good friend, someone you've had an equation with, you know, please don't unfriend without clarifying. But having said that, There are toxic people on Facebook. I unfriend all the time, Karen, and they're not friends we're talking about. I'm just talking, you know, if there's no room for negativity on my page, and I know you would agree with that. So definitely, it's the people you don't know very well, you're just toxic, by all means, unfriend and all. But what Karen is really talking about is friendships, people you've known well. You know, before unfriending them, which is an extreme step, by all means, give them a chance to explain.
Yeah, for
Wouldn't
sure.
you agree?
It's really, absolutely, I agree
Excellent.
entirely.
So that brings me to my rapid fire round.
Ooh.
Not for the faint-hearted. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
I'm just going to ask you a series of very quick, simple questions, but some of them could be difficult choices, right? So we'll see how we go.
Okay.
All right? All right. Stilettos or flats?
Flats.
Oh, gee, that came out quick. What happened? I thought you're fashionista that you are.
I like to wear wedges that are high, but not stilettos.
Ah, wedges.
That little tiny, tiny thing that makes all of my kilos balance upright and my height is not fun.
No, it's painful actually.
It's painful on the ball of your foot.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm a flats person as well, and wedges for that matter. All right. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
A night owl.
Oh, okay. So you sort of, your creativity is at its best as it approaches evening?
In the mornings is when I fall into my deepest sleep, probably about 4 o'clock.
Is
and
that
really, I don't like to get up before 8 a.m. However, a lot of the activities that I want to do are 6:30 to 7 o'clock. But we've been talking about this, my partner and I. I know you want rapid fire, but this is an explanation.
No, please, by all means, we love a good story.
We are either morning or night, and it goes back in history, apparently, to people who guarded at night and people who guarded in the early hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And he said it's very hard from his reading to change that. So I'm about to embark on going to bed at 9 and getting up at 6. And if anyone can tell me how to do that and do it easily, more than grateful for help.
That's a good one. I'm just going to say Sush Reddy saying amazing talk show, Nim and Karen. So thank you for that, Sush. Good to see you. All right, moving on to my next question. Tea or coffee?
Coffee in the morning, tea the rest of the day.
Okay, so that was very clear in Karen's mind. There's no two ways about it.
No two ways about
So
it.
coffee first thing in the morning, yeah?
Yep, cappuccino.
Oh, okay.
Extra hot.
She's not fussy or anything, nothing like that. All right, and what's your favorite cuisine?
I like Thai and Indian.
Okay, you get a gold star for that because you said you love Indian, and you know that's good. Yeah,
Yes.
excellent. So talking about Indian food, is there a favorite restaurant in Sydney that you like to go to or you would recommend?
Colin's been taking me to the Malabar in Crow's Nest.
Oh, nice.
And I recommend going upstairs because it's not as noisy as downstairs.
And
But the food's fabulous.
It's fabulous. So what's your equation with spice? Like, can you take it?
Not chili.
Not chili.
I like spice, but not chili.
Okay, and is there a favorite Indian dish that is that, your go-to dish where you don't even have to look at the menu? Is there anything like that, or you like to explore new dishes?
I like lamb korma. I love lamb though. Lamb's one of my favourite.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are a few options on the menu.
Butter chicken, but that's like the real light, you know.
Yeah, you'll have
Bring-
to go to India and taste the traditional butter chicken. Or, yeah.
I'm going one day.
You will, yes. Let me know and I'll tell you where all to visit.
Fabulous.
So that's really it for today. I've had so much fun chatting with you. I was just looking at the clock and I'm thinking, where did the time go? I could talk
Oh
to
my
you
goodness.
forever. I mean, it is a half an hour show, but I could talk for a lifetime with Karen. That's just how we are. When we start talking, it's very hard for us. This is this topic and there's that topic. But thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to say? Any last parting words to our lovely audience?
No, look, I think it's amazing how Nim brings a community together and shares her wisdom, because she's a very wise woman and she's very generous in all that you do to your community and to people outside your community. You're very giving. You've come along and shared at my events and people love you. You speak so beautifully, you write so beautifully, and wow, I'm a lucky person to have you as a friend, and I'm not unfriending you.
Thank you. I'm deeply honored. I hope you've had fun because I certainly have.
I really have.
It was great.
I've never done a FaceTime live.
Before, wow. And look how much wisdom you've shared with us, because that's one thing about Karen, right? We're a mutual admiration society, so I'm going to tell a few things about Karen. She has so much wisdom to share, and I've known her for a few years now, and each time I meet up with her, I learned something new.
What did you learn today?
I learned today about the fact that don't talk over people. Don't stand up for when you're in the public transport. I've learned so much.
And listen.
And listen. I've learned a lot. So thank you so much for coming along and being a part of Sydney Social. And I look forward to catching up with you again very soon and continuing this conversation.
We will. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you, everybody, lovely people. Again, happy Diwali to all of you. Enjoy, eat a lot of mithai, have fun. Love to you all. See you next week. Bye.